This is the legend of the beautiful San Juan Mountain ghost town of Howardsville, Colorado, and the Little Nation Mine and Silverton Northern Railroad. Howdy there, I'm Zane Lewis, and today I'll be telling you the story of a small, forgotten San Juan Mountain legend of Colorado called Howardsville, which was once an important and rugged mining camp in between the towns of Silverton and Animas Forks along the Silverton Northern Railroad. Today it leaves a legacy as one of San Juan County's most incredible ghost towns, and in this documentary, we'll rediscover the forgotten history and trials of the residents of one of my favorite legends of Colorado. The story of Howardsville first began when in 1860, Captain Charles Baker led a group of miners into the San Juan Mountains, making their first official camp at the future site of Silverton in Baker's Park. Despite discovering gold in the Animas River, they were forced to leave because the land was the property of the Ute Indian tribe. However, it would be just 12 years later, in 1872, when George W. Howard made his first mining claim at the soon-to-be site of Howardsville and built the first cabin at the eventual town site in 1873, with the territory being ceded by the Utes to the U.S. government in the Brunot Agreement of 1873, thousands of prospectors began to flow into the San Juan Mountains, some of whom had been with the original Baker Party exploration in 1860. The town was officially laid out and established by the Bullion City Company in 1874, originally being named after the company. Located in the Animas Mining District, Bullion City would become the first county seat of La Plata County, and it was also the first attempted settlement in the western slope of the Colorado Territory. Later that year, it was renamed for either George Howard or possibly Lieutenant Howard, another important townsperson. However, due to the new San Juan County being carved out of La Plata in January of 1876, Howardsville was only the county seat for less than a year, as it found itself in a new county, and the larger town of Silverton became the official county seat. Constructed in '74 and only used for a year, the town's courthouse was temporarily the seat of government for the entire southwest Colorado Territory. Sadly, the structure would burn down in 1854 and was never rebuilt. With the arrival of the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad in Silverton, the town's importance was reduced, but thanks to the region's extensive mineral deposits, mining operations would continue to grow throughout the Animas Mining District over the next few decades, and trains would eventually reach Howardsville 12 years later in 1896, when Otto Mears, the pathfinder of the San Juans, built the Silverton Northern from Silverton to Eureka. In 1905, the Silverton Northern built a 1.3-mile-long extension from the town through the mountainous Cunningham Gulch to both the famous Old Hundred Mine and Green Mountain Mine. One interesting story from this time was when in 1908, 45-year-old Jim Murphy was shot and murdered by 24-year-old Oscar Nelson over a heated game of cards in a saloon in Howardsville. Nelson was soon arrested by Sheriff Palmquist, and at the time, Nelson's stepfather, Henry Forsyth, was the county commissioner of San Juan County. Unfortunately, much of the rest of Howardsville's story has been all but lost to history, and we do not know very much about what went on during the rest of its 30-year-long existence, but we do know that the Little Nation and Pride of the West Mills helped keep the town alive until the 1940s. In 1921, in one of the most important events in the town's history, the Little Nation Mining Company constructed the Little Nation Mill to service their mine, the latter of which was built 10,000 feet up above sea level on King Solomon Mountain and 500 feet above the valley and mill below. A 2,900-foot-long aerial tramway, which given the rough mountainside it had to traverse, was an engineering marvel, and it transported ores all the way down the Solomon to its destination of the mill below. The mill, with one helper and one operator working at a time, was devised to be able to process 50 tons of ore a day, and with a mine that was receiving $25 per ton for her ore, was on its way to becoming something special. But due to incompetent management, While the mill was under construction, the mine's development was thrown under the bus, and as a result, when the mill was ready for usage, the mine was disgustingly behind its ore production, and the mill only ran briefly before it was permanently shut down. Though the mill was out of production by the time the 1940s rolled around, the mine was still operating and providing minerals for the war effort during the Second World War, and the tramway sent ores back down the mountain to the mill, which would then be shipped by truck to the Shenandoah Dives Custom Mill. Due to the decreasing prices of ores after the end of World War II, the mine would finally halt operations for good in 1953 and has since faded into history, except to be featured in the movie Night Passage and thousands of people's photographs. As for the Pride of the West Mill, very little is known about it. However, it likely sprang up at around the same time as the Little Nation and probably ceased operations in the 40s or 50s. The Silverton Northern Railroad's track would get torn up in 1942, and with the demise of the Little Nation and Pride of the West, the only two things keeping the town afloat, Howardsville would become yet another abandoned legend of Colorado. So, what remains of Howardsville today? Compared to other ghost towns, quite a significant amount. And sometimes, even today, the town still makes the news. To start with, a few people still live in the town, and it's easy to understand why. With incredible mountains shaping the valley, along with rivers and waterfalls, this has to be one of the most serene places man could ever want to live. There are numerous abandoned structures throughout Howardsville, such as cabins and mining structures. As of 2021, when I last stopped by in the town, a couple of these cabins are actually for sale, and they are in pretty decent condition. Howardsville is where I shot one of my all-time favorite photos, this one right here, which has multiple cabins, with the ones on the left being abandoned while the ones on the right are occupied, and has the snow-capped San Juan Mountains right behind it, with the offshoot road next to the river leading into Cunningham Gulch to the Old 100 Mine, the same route that the Silverton Northern Railroad once took. Next to a modern two-story house are the preserved remains of the Little Nation Mill. In the 2000s, the San Juan County Historical Society was given the mill and placed it on the San Juan County Register of Historic Places, and then in 2008, work began on the mill to restore and preserve it for future generations, with the old cabin next to the mill also getting restored by the society. Allow your eyes to follow the metal ropes that once held metal buckets of ores and miners up the mountainside, and you will see the collapsed remains of the Little Nation Mine, which would make for a great drone video sometime. The Pride of the West Mill is one of the best preserved mining sites in the Animas Mining District, and in fact, there is still talk of reopening the mill for future production, with Colorado Goldfields buying the mill in 2008, promising to bring mining back to the San Juans, which hadn't seen any mining activity since the Sunnyside mine in Eureka shut down for good in 1991. However, due to a series of legal actions and lawsuits, the mill was never able to be put back into operation, and the company filed for bankruptcy in 2018. The EPA continues to perform reclamation efforts at the site, and there is always the possibility that it will be put back into operation someday. Up County Road 4 along Cunningham Gulch, the Old 100 Mine is still open for tours, with the remains of its mill and other mining remnants littered all throughout the area. Continue along County Road 2, and it will lead you to the ghost towns of Middleton, Eureka, and Animas Forks. While not much is known about Middleton, Eureka and Animas Forks both have fascinating histories, with both being served by the Silverton Northern. Eureka was the home of the Sunnyside Mine and Mill, which at one point was the largest producer of gold in Colorado, and had some incredible residents like Emma Engelman and John Terry. In my opinion, the town is situated in one of the most beautiful spots on planet Earth, and it was the subject of my first ever documentary in July of 2020, which to this day remains one of my most viewed documentaries, and I highly recommend that you watch it. Animas Forks featured incredible mines such as the Gold Prince, Frisco, Bonanza Tunnel, among many others. It boasted one of the highest newspapers in the entire country at over 11,200 feet, and today is one of the most visited ghost towns in Colorado, and will someday be a subject I cover in greater depth. And of course, the town of Silverton was the center point of all of the mining in the San Juans, and today it continues to flourish as a tourist destination for off-roading and the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad. Over the course of its lifespan, Howardsville played a key role in the formation of American civilization in the San Juans, with thousands of people moving to and living in the region, all of whom made thousands of memories and experiences, every single one of which are priceless. With hundreds of thousands of ghost towns and abandoned mines scattered throughout Colorado, the legacy of the West can still be felt today while trekking through some of the most beautiful scenery in the world. Today, many of these structures are in danger of falling down without revitalization efforts. Thanks to viewers like you, we will educate Americans on the importance of these places to our history, and we will always respect the legacies of those who came before. Yeah, Howardsville's legacy is pretty spectacular, isn't it? The people behind the town's success traveled through unforgettable scenery and forged new lives for themselves and their families, all while helping to craft the world that we know today. The miners who settled Howardsville worked unforgiving terrain, riding dangerous aerial tramways across 12,000 feet high mountains. The miners and city folks crafted a nostalgic and beautiful legacy that we can still enjoy today. Raw, rugged, and beautiful. I'm St. Louis. Thanks for watching.